quickly just with their first name and just like in one sentence so we know who we are talking with. Okay? Is that okay?
Great.
Would you like to start?
Hello, I'm Michael and I'm studying for the elementary school and yeah.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm studying to be a teacher.
Yeah. I'm Janina and I'm also studying to become a teacher. Hello, my name is Lena and I'm studying also for elementary school.
Hi, my name is Amir and I'm studying German and English in order to become a secondary teacher.
Wonderful. My name is Silke Graf and I'm a professor of education at the University of Würzburg, and I hand over to Christian in the other seminar room.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So my name is Christian Seifert-Zapf and I am a research assistant at the chair of Professor Grafe. And yeah, here are my students, and maybe I'll pass the laptop around so they can.
Hi, my name is Mats and I'm studying to become a teacher.
Hi, I'm Johannes. I'm 21 years old and I also study for becoming teacher. I study geographics.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm studying to become an elementary school teacher. My main subject is German.
Hello, can you see me? I'm 35 years old and my main culture is German too. Hello.
Hi, I'm Christina and I'm studying to become an English and French teacher.
Okay, so this is my beautiful group of students, and we're located in the MEET, the laboratory of our chair.
Okay, that's great. So I think my students will introduce ourselves. I'm Renee Hobbs, a professor of communication studies at the University of Rhode Island, where I direct the Media Education Lab. Who's next?
My name is Tony, and like I said, I'm a double major in psychology and communications.
My name is Colton. I'm a major in communications and a minor in history.
My name is Michael Palagonia, and I actually basically graduated. I have one class left, and I'm working in New York City as an insurance broker.
I'm Jenna. I'm majoring in elementary education and communications.
I'm Dom. I'm a communications major with a minor in history.
I'm Kelly. I'm a communications major and a sociology minor.
And my name is Wang Hua and I'm a communication student in University of Rhode Island.
I'm Candace. I'm a senior. I am a double in communications and public relations.
Okay, so my students are taking this class, Propaganda Online. So we have a time when we may gather like this, but we are delighted to be engaged in some small group and some large group discussion with you. So Silke, can you give us an overview of what we're going to try to do in the next 15 minutes or so?
Absolutely, Renee. We see it on the next slide. So we already are in the middle of introductions, and today's main goal of the session is to explore how important and what role does context play for the understanding of digital contemporary propaganda. This is the main goal, and of course we already worked in a wonderful way together with your students in an asynchronous way. So we had the reflection about how propaganda is being taught in school. So we have all these beautiful results about that. And we as well analyzed 2 video examples. One which here we have them. So one our students found, and your students were interested in that and then fit it into your curriculum. So we have a beautiful analysis of the 2 examples of propaganda from both our cultural contexts. I don't know if there's, with regard to these 2 videos, if there's anything maybe you, Renee, would like to add, or your students or our students, before we go into a deep analysis of 2 new examples.
Yeah. So maybe we just talk a little bit about what surprises we experienced watching and commenting on these two videos. So what surprises did you find when you watched and commented on these two videos?
I thought the first video about welcoming to the new Islamic State of Germany, I thought it was surprising how they kind of portrayed it as their newly established caliphate rather than like German historical culture, especially like the festivals and all the historical monuments. It's more about their Islamic state than, you know, German society. So I kind of feel like they inaccurately portrayed that.
Yeah, I wondered if German people would be offended at the sign that said Oktoberfest.
Yeah,
without alcohol or pork, right? So were you offended by this video? Or did you laugh at it?
Speak up.
I'd like to.
Okay.
So I think that video is rather being satirical rather than serious, I guess. But that's just me.
I think you had an opinion as well? Or
it's just, I'm not sure that the Oktoberfest or
Come closer so we can hear you.
Hat sie es jetzt verstanden? Okay. I just thought that it was a picture that I can imagine when there's no beer and no Schweinebraten at the Oktoberfest.
Anybody in the other room?
Yeah, I think I wasn't surprised by the idea of presenting Oktoberfest without pork, without beer, because in the context of that video, that was perfectly logical, because they wanted to show that Germans will be deprived of the very Germanness of even their biggest parties. But I have to be honest, even though the video obviously was in English, I was surprised by the fact that it was shot or produced in the United States. At first, I thought it was done by someone like the AfD, the political party that the other clip is, I think, done by, that we'll talk about later. So I was seeing it in the context of that inner German discussion about security, too much immigration and all that. And I was really surprised that it was an American used, it seems, in the election campaign of Donald Trump. That was a surprise for me, that Germany could play that role within that campaign.
Any other thoughts on this issue?
And sorry, maybe if I could add something, I would be curious how much reception a video like that might find in the States. If it was really widely received, or rather not at all, whether that was a help for the campaign of those people who try to influence it.
Let's just check it, thumbs up. Before we talked about it in class, had anybody seen this video before on their YouTube channel or anywhere else? Right, so maybe it was targeting a specific audience that is anti-Muslim, right? So it's possible that it really didn't reach a wide audience, but it reinforced anti-Muslim beliefs among some Americans.
Right.
And well, again, in the context of that discussion, also probably about migration, whether the United States can still guarantee the security of their borders and all these issues, I can imagine. Would you say in that context, given what the people doing or producing it would have liked to convey as a message, was it well done? In their sense, you know, was it done in a way so that they might achieve what they wanted to achieve, or rather not? Because that's difficult to say from here, I guess, to judge from here.
Yeah, so I guess I wondered, would Americans who watched that video think that Germany was losing its Germanness?
Yes, for example.
What do you think, students? If you watch that video, would you believe Germany is losing its Germanness?
While I was watching it, I just was really focused on the sarcasm overall. So I just kind of thought it was one of those joke videos and not really anything serious, because like I personally believe that Germany has control of their country still.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I thought it was a joke watching it, and I had to ask myself several times, like, is this serious, or because this can't be real, because it has to be a joke kind of thing.
So the humor serves as a protective cover for the propaganda, right? You might get planted the idea Germany is losing its Germanness, but the protective cover of humor makes it not something we take seriously. Yeah, that was a fascinating example. And now we might just turn for a few minutes to the Budweiser ad. We also watched the 2017 Super Bowl ad that features the young founder of the Budweiser empire on his immigrant journey. And I wonder, ask the same question, what surprises about that video did you notice? Do you think that German students and American students interpreted that video the same exact way?
I mean, for me personally, it seemed like it was kind of accurate. Like, people in America don't take foreigners that well, so he had to be like rejected a few times until he like found people who were actually interested in what he was sharing with them.
So the discrimination he felt was that was shown was accurate, you think?
Yeah.
And I think it even needs to be looked at when it was released. I've done a few projects on this video. So when this was released was about a week after President Trump released the refugee ban, essentially, which barred certain denominations of people from coming across the border. And this video is obviously showing a lot of racism, for Bush, I believe, is the one that's coming over. But although Anheuser-Busch claimed that it had no correlation, it was released right after, and it was released before the Super Bowl actually aired, so it leads you to wonder if it was released on purpose. I totally think it was. Everything released is never by accident. There's always a reason why, and they took a stand. Whether their consumers were pleased with that stand or not is another question, but they definitely took a stand, because at the end of the video it shows that these two immigrants created this incredible company. So
wow, thank you for sharing. Those are two really interesting ideas. I wonder, for the German students, we all saw it because it was part of the Super Bowl, and that is the most watched TV show of the year. So we were all familiar with this ad. Had you seen this ad before being assigned to watch it in class? And what interpretations did you make of it?
Well, I did not see the ad, but I was quietly stunned, because about 800 million people watched the Super Bowl, and 150 million were in the USA, so it's quite a worldwide phenomenon. But I didn't see it before, but I interpreted it as you. It was something against Trump, against those anti-immigrant politics. I think we all have those opinions.
But we also, on the other hand, looked at it as a contribution to that of the USA as far as the American dream is concerned. So basically, this is quite a good example of achieving the American dream. At least that's what we were thinking as humans watching that advertisement.
Right. So there you go. So in a way, it does reinforce the stereotypical American dream. Okay, so Chris.
That represented in your opinions? One might wonder.
Right.
Okay, we have also a comment about the company Budweiser itself. Could you just
well, that was that I heard that there has been an issue for a while that since that is also the name of that Czech city where the original beer Budweiser comes from, and that at a time the big American company Budweiser tried to sort of make it part of their company, but I'm not sure whether that's true. But I mean, looking at it from here, you could wonder, watching video, if that ever played a role, because someone's coming from Europe bringing the beer there, that very recipe. But apart from that, coming back to the context that you said that the video was shown in the States as part of the Super Bowl, I'm surprised if it even may have been a political comment of some sort on what Trump had just said before. I would find that it's quite complex for television advertising to have all these implications. And I think that is quite unheard of advertising in Germany. And I think it becomes normal that ads in television become more and more subtle when it comes to conveying the message. It isn't as direct anymore as it used to be, but that was very subtle then in many ways. Yeah, so that would surprise me personally. Maybe not for someone in the United States. Maybe it's more open and clear what they're wanting to show. But I find it really quite complex, very long, and interesting also if it may really have been a comment on actual policies happening now.
Right. So here we see Candace in the United States, and tell me your name again.
Frank.
Basically exploring the political motivations of the company for releasing this ad framed in this way at this time in the context of our own immigration debates. We might see the company as being incredibly courageous, or maybe betting on the fact that that American dream message, kind of overrides, the strong emotions of that may override the more subtle political message. So at least for some parts of this of the viewers.
I thought it was just pretty cool because it's during one of the most American times of the year, if not, because I think football is besides Canada, probably only, America's the only place that has it. And beer is known as like a stereotypical American thing. And they try to show that, well, if it wasn't for this immigrant, we wouldn't have all this to be celebrating in the first place. So I think it was kind of like a shot at if you ban immigrants, look at what we could be losing, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Excellent point, Michael. Of course, we do think of beer as an American thing, but I guess maybe the Germans think of it as a German thing, right?
That's true, Renee. I see no
Czechs think of it as a Czech thing. Every country owns its beer. All right, maybe we turn to our next activity. We have a lot of fun planned for this session. Silke, can you set us up what we're going to be doing now?
Yeah, so we thanks for this interesting discussion, and we thought it would be good to have two other examples to discuss. And these two examples are advertisements from the German AfD and a video of Donald Trump. I'm not sure if everybody has already looked at the video, if we should take some time to look at it again. So each group can decide what is helpful. And the task is to identify similarities and differences between these two examples. And we thought we split up in 3 smaller groups to discuss that first. And you can write down your results, or you should write down your results here in the Padlet link we provided. So each group can write down their ideas, and after about 15 minutes of discussion in smaller groups, we will share the results and we will compare how the examples have been discussed differently in the groups. So we have now about 15-20 minutes maximum before we come together in the big group again.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break us up into 3 groups. If you take a look at that Padlet wall where it says make some notes on the Padlet wall, clearly one person from your team is going to be responsible for, two members of the team responsible for capturing some of the discussion. But when you get into your breakout room, you should watch the 2 videos, and then we're going to give you some good amount of time to try to figure out what similarities and differences you note. Now, before I move forward, give me a thumbs up if you understand the task that we're going to be doing right now. Okay, thumbs up. You understand what we're doing? I am going to break you up into groups, and the room will open. You'll have to click on it to enter the room, all right? So Christian, you're leading one group with Candace, Kelly, and Dom. Silka, you're leading a group with Kristen, Colton, Michael, and Wendy. And then Said, Justine, Jenna, and I will be in the final room. All right, let's get started.
Okay. So we will meet again in like 15 to 20 minutes, okay? Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have someone else?
Here I am in the breakout room.
We were just talking about how like spooky similar they are. How like it seemed as though Germany may have like copied some of the aspects of Trump's advertisement, and it was just kind of weird how I could kind of match up each sentence with each other.
Spooky similar is a great, very quotable. That's like, are you a PR major? That's almost like you said, you could match up moment by moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just their use of visuals too.
Explain.
They would show visuals of the people they were talking about to like put a visual to what they were saying, so it made it not more relatable in a sense, if that makes sense. But like instead of just hearing it, you're getting a visual to back it up too.
So I'm thinking about the case where we're seeing, what's her name, the woman? We're seeing her in the car. We're seeing her, like, you're right. She's made to seem really like a real person, right?
Yeah.
So if you thought that the AFD was a bunch of Nazis, like she doesn't look like a Nazi, right? She looks like a nice lady.
Yeah, exactly.
Some stereotypes, the use of visuals.
Yeah, it breaks down the stereotypes, I think, for that one at least.
Yeah, and it in Trump's video, it seems like he has a plan, and that this plan will help all Americans, even though a lot of Americans don't see it that way.
Right. It is a very positive framing. That's a great observation. And that's true for the AFD ad too, right? That it's presented as, this is a plan that will help people in our country. Right? And so it is kind of very positive and optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was going to say another similarity in that regard is just with the whole tone of the 2 videos. I think that they're both kind of try to be and they try to be relatable to the audience, even though they kind of already know the audience's opinion. That's a really interesting kind of similarity.
Yeah, so the tone is relatable, like to the regular person, right? And the regular issues that we face about the cost of living, taxes. So I wondered about what your thinking is about how the other, how the enemy, how the immigrant is represented in these 2 ads. What did you think about that?
Well, they're kind of represented as like these evil foreigners coming into our country and taking over our jobs, and not like being the reason we have a lot of homeless people. And I don't really believe that's the case. I mean, a lot of the times it's just like not finding the job they want, so they refuse to work at all. Like if I have heard of plenty of stories of homeless people begging on the street, and like places like Dunkin' or McDonald's or whatever coming up to them and be like, hey, like you can have a job, just fill out this application, and then being like, no, like screw off.
Right. So this idea about what the cause of that whether this is something is a lifestyle choice or whether this is a deliberate strategy, that's really left open to question.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we can watch the first 30 seconds and then talk a little bit about the music, the editing, the lighting, and the color, okay? Because I want to return to that idea about how spookily similar they are, but I also want to think a little bit about what emotions are activated and how are they activated. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can do this right now. We're just going to watch a little chunk of each one, and we're thinking about what emotions are activated, and then what about the music, the color, the lighting, and the sound.
Introducing the new foldable dual-screen Axon
Skip
F.
that ad.
Ich habe mich einiges in meinem Leben getraut. Meinen Job an den Nagel gehängt, um Politik zu machen. Für die AfD. Ausgerechnet für die. Besorgte Bürger, Patrioten und junge Wilde. Wirklich nicht leicht, hier einen Nenner zu finden. Warum machst du dir überhaupt so viele Gedanken in Deutschland?
Ich war 40 Jahre in der CDU. Die illegale Öffnung der Grenzen, da war mir klar, hier läuft etwas schief. Wenn wir uns jetzt nicht trauen zu sagen, das ist unser Land, wir bestimmen hier, dann wird Deutschland von der Landkarte verschwinden, nicht wahr, Frau Weidel?
Ich sage...
Okay. What did you notice about the music, the lighting, the editing?
It was kind of intense.
Intense? That's a great...
Yeah.
That's a great adjective.
Just because the music was kind of strong pulsing in the background, and just the visuals had like different lighting effects and colors to them. And the one picture that stood out to me was of the monkeys when they were talking about like who was leading the country or whatever. But yeah, I don't know.
Thanks for kicking it off, Justine. What else?
It's kind of like a dark video, especially when they go like switch the editing to the people who are ruining their country, and they kind of make them look like worse than they are.
Nice point. So they do look worse than they are. And then I was really intrigued. There's a lot of kind of photo manipulation in this ad. So two that I noticed were the tear that seems, or I guess it's rain, that seems to be splashing on the screen of the candidate, Alice Weidel. Watch this.
Besorgte Bürger, Patrioten und junge Wilde. Wirklich nicht leicht, hier einen Nenner zu finden.
Okay, do you see that tear? So it's rain, right? And but there's a raindrop on the camera lens, right? So it's an interesting way that she's presented as optimistic, but we also sense her concern for the country. And then there's this other photo manipulation.
Warum machst du dir überhaupt so viele Gedanken?
There's this other there, right there. That image of the guy with the one blue eye. Right? So like, I don't know about you, but I find this kind of scary. Is this a scary, is
in der CDU. Die illegale Öffnung der Grenzen, da war mir klar, hier...
It actually, I don't know if any of you have watched Game of Thrones, but it kind of reminds me of a White Walker.
Absolutely. it definitely creates a feeling of fear, right? So this image, I couldn't quite understand. This is homeless people, right? Or people who are needy, right? And so clearly the idea of creating a sense of fear of homeless people is really part of it. And I noticed the way in which black and white images and color images are like juxtaposed, right? So we'll just keep watching for another 30 seconds here.
Wenn wir uns jetzt nicht trauen zu sagen, das ist unser Land, wir bestimmen hier, dann wird Deutschland von der Landkarte verschwinden, nicht wahr, Frau Weidel?
Ich sage lieber, das rechnet sich nicht. Kein Land der Welt kann jährlich Hunderttausende Zuwanderer alimentieren. Entweder hat Frau Merkel einen Goldesel oder sie veruntreut deutsches Steuergeld. Eins von beiden.
Frau Merkel hat keinen Goldesel, doch einen Plan. Deshalb hält sie auch ihre Europa-Agenda geheim. Ich wette mit Ihnen, dass es nach der Wahl einen Schuldenschnitt Griechenlands gibt, zu Lasten der deutschen Bürger.
Nicht mit der AfD.
So in this middle part, she's really blaming the other party, accusing them of corruption, right? So here she's kind of moving on the attack, creating another enemy. First the enemy was the homeless and the immigrants, and now the other enemy is the other party, right? What did you notice about the image, the color, the language, and the sound when it moves to start critiquing the political parties?
It's kind of like a very, like, this is what's happening, like, very solid. They don't want an argument, like, because this is the truth, kind of like language and tone.
Yeah, and the words on the screen, of course, we don't know what those words are, but the words on the screen make it even seem more like truthful, right? Yeah, it seems truthful. They
seem like facts, yeah.
Yeah, the words on the screen make it seem like facts. Good. Okay, let's watch the next chunk.
Die Deutschen brauchen eine Partei, die endlich wieder ihre Interessen vertritt. Deutsche Interessen. Nicht rechts, sondern rechtens. Und größer als 15%.
We gotta talk about her facial expression. Some of you guys wrote about the importance of facial expression. Since you're communication students, you're tuned into issues of nonverbals. What's the message that you get from her facial expression here?
I just feel like her body language in general isn't really what you would expect it to be. I think that she's dressed very nice, but I think that it comes across as like a little bit, not miserable, but a little bit miserable.
And also like kind of judgy.
Yeah, I get that too.
Like, I don't even know. I can't really explain what I'm thinking, but she looks like super judgy. Like, you're really gonna like let this other party take control of Germany?
Yeah, she seems very serious too. Like you do not want to mess with her or argue against her.
Yeah, she seems strong in a little bit mean way, right? Like you said, you don't want to mess with her. She seems strong, but in a kind of judgy way. That's very interesting. All right, let's just watch a little bit more.
Und größer als 15%.
Die Mutbürger sind jetzt gefragt. Holen Sie sich am 24. September Ihr Land wieder zurück. Trau dich, Deutschland. AfD.
Right. Okay, so maybe we should go back and you know what's so interesting is until you called it out, I didn't even see those monkeys. Right? They just were like what, a fraction of a second, right? So I didn't even notice them. So let's just take a look at the other one. We'll do the same thing. We're trying to describe the emotions, the feelings, the color, the lighting, and the sound.
Political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington,
Alexander Gardner is the candidate of the Alternative Botanic Party, or AFD. Welcome to DW.
So let me start again there. I had two videos playing at the same time.
It's about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control and for the global special interests, they partner with these people who don't have your good in mind.
Whoa. Okay, so what did you notice about the feelings, the color, the lighting, the sound, and the music?
Well, first off, I kind of want to point out, like, it's Donald Trump speaking the entire time. Like, he wants to make sure that, it's his voice, and, like, he's going to do whatever to, like, fix our country. And, like, he picks out these images of the people he's kind of trying to denounce, I guess, and that make them look like kind of terrible. Like Hillary Clinton's picture looks like she's bored.
She looks miserable.
Yeah, and like whenever he also used images of regular people, so kind of trying to be like, you are like the American people and you need to take back your country. Like, look at all these other regular people who are ready to stand behind me.
It's kind of flattering to see those regular people too, because they are diverse, aren't they? Right? So there's I remember there's an Asian woman at least.
And a black man, and then I think a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of an us versus them framing, right? It's us, the American people, and Donald Trump, and them is symbolized. I think this image that we're frozen on is kind of right? The evil Congress, the evil federal bank, the evil foreign governments, right? The evil crooked Hillary. So there's definitely like this us then framing. What did you? Let's take a look at the next section, and I want you to listen to the music and the feelings evoked by the images. Music and feelings.
Political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large companies and political entities.
What'd you notice?
So whenever he's talking about kind of bad things, the screen is more, or like what they're showing is more green tinted, and it kind of makes it more unappealing in a way to make you agree with what he's saying.
Great observation about the color manipulation there, right? To make those things seem distasteful, literally to make them green. Great observation, Justin. What else did you notice?
And also, whenever he is talking about something evil or like bad for our country, the images popping up are past presidents and Hillary, and like a lot of Hillary Clinton, because she was who he was running against.
Yeah. He's also positioned as an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. What else did you notice? I thought the music in this section was really calm and strangely like eerie.
Oh, Jenna, unmute your microphone.
I was gonna say about how whenever it talks about something negative, as if you know, there's nothing negative about Trump, and it's never he's never in the bad light in this video. This video is just to make him look better than the others.
And when he is saying something positive, he's showing the American people, like the close-ups of the different races and ages and everything.
Good point. So we're meant to think that we're not really electing Trump, we're electing the American people, right? And the people are, he's really just embodying the people. Yeah, I definitely think that, I think we've shown in and so what similarities and differences now that we've looked at both of them a little bit closely, what similarities and differences do you notice?
I mean, both videos flip back in terms of like lighting. The first video was, you know, color to black and white, color to black and white. But this one is just kind of color, but darker in color, lighter in color. So
this one also, oh, sorry.
Yes. No, you're good.
This one also uses more videos rather than the other one just uses pictures and has it like zooming in. Yeah. This one is more visuals of, like in the beginning when I first watched the money and all that, I honestly thought of The Apprentice, of his like intro for his old show, and it just reminded me of it for some reason. So I thought that was funny, but yeah.
That is fascinating because it definitely, this one, the Trump ad definitely has higher production values, right? The AFD ad is, like you said, still images and a lot more text on screen. Like a lot more text on screen. We're also doing translations too. Okay, we're going to break out and return to the main room. Hopefully one of you is going to make a couple of notes about some of the key ideas we noticed about mood, lighting, and the representation of the candidates, the voice of the people on that Padlet wall, and then we'll come back and have a conversation with the whole group, okay?
Okay.
It looks like we're all back.
Wonderful. That worked out perfectly. Great.
Okay, so now I think what we want to do is we want to hear from one member of each team. Probably the best way for this to happen is while someone is typing on the Padlet wall, right? Maybe somebody else is just kind of trying to talk about what key ideas came up in your small group discussion. So we'll hear from team 1, team 2, and team 3. Christian, how about if your team goes first?
Okay. Just finished typing. Maybe I can do that.
We still can't hear you.
Okay, so this was our column here, and yeah, so maybe one of the students can explain what we just discussed and where we found similarities and differences.
So, well, we found that both videos address fears of the citizens of the United States and the citizens of Germany about basically losing their identity, losing control over their borders, losing importance in the sense of that their country suggestedly loses importance. Both videos suggest that one of the main reason maybe for all that to happen is that established politicians that are suggestedly part of a system, the so-called establishment, didn't really care about the people, neither in America or the people of Germany, and that's why they let it happen, themselves making quite a bit of money, and yeah, ignoring that the country sort of loses its identity. So then we, in a discussion with Candice, for example, found that from your point of view, looking at the AFD video, there seems to be a more aggressive tone throughout the whole video, if you look at the Trump video, we found that given the German standards of political debate, the AfD introduced actually quite an aggressive tone, being very direct about accusing, for example, Merkel, her refugee policy, addressing the reasons why they think that Germany loses identity and money and so on. So comparatively might be less aggressive than the Trump video, but yeah, again, compared to what we are used to, it was quite aggressive, we found. And what we also found that both politicians, or the three politicians, suggest that if you make the country great again, and that's something that Trump kept or repeatedly said, make America great again, then not only the country would be great again, the United States and Germany, but also sort of the self-esteem of its citizens would be great again. So that's sort of very traditional nationalistic concept of policy, I think. So actually, it seems we found a lot of similarities, if I'm right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then let's hear from Silke. Let's hear from your teams. Some ideas that came out in your team.
Kristen, would you like to explain, or somebody helps from our German side as well with the presentation?
So you want me to explain what?
No, I meant Kristen from the. Sorry.
Sure, I can go through what we discussed. So we had.
Thank you.
We had similarities, just like the first group maintained. It was sort of an us versus them mentality in both videos, where the migrants or immigrants were the common enemy. An economic concern was stressed in both videos. And we determined that like both were sort of hiding xenophobia or racism under the guise of bravery. So it was a call to action, both videos, like be brave, stand up. And they were attacking their former opponents as if they did something wrong. So that's gonna hit against the establishment. Some differences we noticed was the rhetoric used in the American video, where Trump is sort of on that platform and he's the only one going through his message, whereas in the AfD video, you have both politicians sharing their experiences. So Trump is placing here more emphasis on himself than the AfD candidates did. The imagery in German videos is of the candidates themselves, whereas in Trump's video, it was a lot of, Americans showing support for him, a lot of imagery of American culture, but the AfD, the candidates themselves were the primary images in the video. Let me see what else. And then we have Trump. The video here is just one person's perspective, whereas the AfD is showing two perspectives, and they're sharing both their opinions. And these candidates, my German friends clarified for me that both candidates were sort of mainstream, and now they're saying like, oh, it's okay to sort of step away from this mainstream and be brave and stand up against prior policies and now vote this conservative way. And so they talk about their past experiences as sort of in the middle candidates who have now shifted much more conservatively. I hope I captured that correctly.
Well, I would even go one step further and call it a shift from conservative ideas towards, well, let's call it nationalist ideas.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kristen.
That was excellent. Let's hear from group 3, group 1. That's my folks in my room. What key ideas emerged from our discussion?
Well, one of my quotable moments was calling it spookily similar. What I meant by that is I could kind of line up every sentence to match each other in some sort of way. So the speech they used was very similar, and even like the words that they were using to capture their thoughts. It kind of seemed as if Trump's ad was taken for the next year and kind of evolved into a German ad instead. And Also, we talked about the lighting and the tone in the video. So both videos had this very like determined kind of tone where they were like, this is how we do it. This is the only way we can do it. Like, you have to vote this way. That's how we're going to fix our country. And then also we talked about the lighting. So both of them had a kind of like light to dark kind of vibe. So anything that was good was kind of in the more lighter side, and then anything that was bad was in the darker colors. So for the German video, it was black and white is what they used. And then in the Trump video, he used kind of like Justine said, green film over it to use it as like a darker looking picture. Then some differences that we found were the AFD video showed a lot of pictures and had a lot of words on screen, whereas the Trump video, it was more video-like. He incorporated videos from conferences, and he showed more pictures of his or America's enemy, and definitely used images of past presidents, and then a lot of video of Hillary Clinton, because that was who he was facing in the election.
Yeah, we weren't sure because we didn't have a German person in our group. Were there unflattering images of the opposition to the AFD presented in that video? Because there were like 1 billion unflattering images of Hillary in this ad. Were there unflattering images of the opposition in this ad? In the German ad?
I don't think so. No.
No. Okay, cool.
Merkel was shown several times, but really only briefly. I mean, what went together, I think, is that whenever they showed Merkel, the very same moment they would say something negative that Merkel and her government have done. But I think they would not as repetitively have shown Clinton and Clinton and Clinton again. I think that was much stronger, really, in the Trump video, that they focused on one person so much. I would say.
Yeah, interesting. So the more the enemy or the opposition more clearly articulated. So one question we had for the Germans was that we didn't have any Germans on our team, so we couldn't explore this question. But we had some feelings about the candidate's personality from her face and from her body language. And so we were thinking about the images that were chosen to communicate her personality. And so we wondered about how you perceived, like what adjectives would you use to describe the way she's shown in this video? Kristen, I'm going to share my screen. I want to invite you just to look at one image, right? Hold on here if I can find it. We couldn't figure out about what feelings we were supposed to have toward her personally. One person said she seemed judgmental, right? Does she come across as judgmental to German audiences or no?
Well, she has basically presented herself as being quite, I don't know how to say that, well, let's call it arrogant, then well, quite strict. For example, there has been a show on TV where we had several candidates showing up to give their opinions just before the elections took place. And basically she took her sheet and she got upset with some, I don't know, some utterings by other politicians. And she basically left that official talk show on TV. which was broadcasted live on TV.
She walked off the stage.
And she walked off the stage being quite upset and, well, kind of aggressive as well. Because people kind of were nagging her, kind of provoked that reaction, honestly. But
so I think that's a really good example of the issue of context, Silke. So you're filling in the gaps for me to help me understand more about her personality. A German viewer would have brought some of that knowledge to evaluate her, right? In terms of the particular headshot of her face and her body language. We didn't really have any of that context. So we couldn't really make many judgments about her personality, right? And we noticed that in the Trump ad, we hardly see Trump at all, right? It's almost like you see the American people instead of seeing Trump. So that was a really interesting thing. We thought, well, maybe it's more important, you know, Trump's already so well known, you know, he's got an outsized, you know, impression already in the public eye. He didn't need to put his face on screen a lot, but maybe this candidate did, right?
Right.
I think that's true. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's Swiss. I think she isn't even German. Isn't that true? Or she lived in Switzerland. So in a way, she's an outsider that only recently, during that campaign, became the candidate because she had to replace the former candidate. So there was a lot of introduction needed for her, much more surely than for Trump. So I think you're perfectly right. And I would say that leaving that live talk show perfectly goes or matches with the image that is supposed to be conveyed in the video, and that she's a polite person, but very tough, very decided, no kidding with her. So that's what they try to bring across, I would say, that she's a businesswoman. She has a suit all the time that she wears. That's at least my impression. And I think that's what is supposed to come across, that she knows how to handle difficult things, and she always be very tough. So that's what I would think they wanted to show with her.
That is very helpful. Thank you so much. Now we're coming to the end of our session because my students are we're going to be wrapping up in just a minute. Silke, we thought that this would be our final question for the session. What new questions come to mind when analyzing propaganda from a cross-national perspective?
Personally, I feel as though, like we discussed earlier in our semester, that a lot of foreign countries take the American propaganda and try to make it their own. So I could definitely see that in the similarities of these ads, them taking some of our advice in a way to make their propaganda.
Thank you for sharing. Other perspectives?
I think it's, really difficult. This is something that we've all had to deal with, but having to analyze content in which you don't necessarily know all the context is so difficult because you can only analyze that surface level. You can't go down to the core, and that's something that we had to, learn about throughout the semester. So we analyzed propaganda, and you couldn't do that unless you knew what was going on. So it's hard.
Thanks for sharing. Other perspectives?
I've got a really simple question to the Americans. Do you personally know people who believe in the fakes of the first video we talked about today?
Do we know people who think Germany's being taken over by Muslims?
Yes, look at it. Okay. You don't know that. But there must be a target group, right?
Personally, I don't know anyone. I've never really heard anyone talk about it.
Neither have I. We'll watch the video. It looked like a spoof to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You know, we all had the same kind of like take on it, that it was like satire, because we personally don't know anybody that would consider Germany an Islamic caliphate.
Thank you.
I think these videos, though, I think it does have to be noted that both of these videos, or actually all of the videos that we've kind of examined here today, show issues that affect the world. They're global issues, and even though there are some major differences, and the first video was completely satire, and we understand that, I think it points to issues of immigration, monetary concerns that not only the United States have, but Germany has too. And so it's interesting to see how propaganda, I guess surrounds itself on these issues, but they're global issues, really. They're not necessarily a United States issue or just a German issue.
Such a great observation, Kristen. Clearly, this idea of rejecting the establishment and searching for new paradigms is, and attacking enemies in order to find those new perspectives and paradigms is something we're seeing happening in both countries. So it's time for us to end now. I think the German students will continue their class, but at this point, the American students are going to say goodbye. We're going to meet again at 4 o'clock today for our regular class, and we'll probably unpack a little bit more about what we learned today. Because since our topic is global propaganda, and we'll be looking at Chinese, Russian, and Turkish propaganda, German students, I invite you to check out our Twitter feed, COM416, hashtag COM416, where we're talking about Russian, Chinese, and Turkish propaganda. And I do want to give everybody who participated a round of applause. So let's do a little applause. Yeah, thank you so much for being part of this today. Silke and Christian, thank you so much for inviting us. And yeah, we'll see you later.
Thank you so much as well.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Bye bye. Thank you so much. It was really great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.